Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Dr. Alan Hyde, and tonight we are joined by very special guests, Veda and Jerry. Is it MacGregor?
Yes, sir.
All right. And they are the co-owners of the Belief Center. We're going to learn all about that. To start tonight, I'd like to just welcome you back. It's nice to be back, settling in with good people that have a solid mission and vision in the community. I think our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of what you guys are doing, and we'll make sure that they get all the information on where to find you guys as we go tonight. But why don't we start a little bit with background? And who wants to go first? Who am I coming at first, Jerry or Veda?
Veda's typically the mouthpiece.
Okay. So
That's funny.
so what got you just kind of in this direction, maybe just some of your background and what got you pushing for the vision you guys have over at the Belief Center?
Well, it comes from a personal struggle. I grew up in a very wonderful, loving home. And when I got out of that wonderful, loving home into the world as a 5-ish-year-old child, I found that unconditional love wasn't out there. So I did not know how to exist in the world because I didn't have any idea how to contend with anything other than unconditional love. I had no skills to know how to deal with conflict because I'd never seen it in my own home or 3 generational layers of family members. We just knew how to love each other. When you get out there, the real world writes on you. You have, you just get those life experiences, one after the other, and they of course stack inside. Because everything writes on us one way or the other, positive or negative. They're just a collection of experiences. And I had no idea when I moved into my professional career of a police officer and an EMT medic that I was already ill-equipped. Ill-equipped. So I learned through my training and the skills that I learned through becoming an EMT and a police officer, how to do things logically, but I didn't know what to do with the ghosts that came with doing those jobs. And what I mean by the ghosts, of course, are the traumas that other people are experiencing that now I am in charge of helping them with.
Yeah.
Right? My father was a firefighter and an EMT in Dallas, and so that gift was handed to me through him, through his love for people. But I just did not know how to handle those ghosts, and I found myself in very hopeless situations. I only served 6 years total in those 2 roles, but I worked in the mental health. I was a mental health deputy first, right out of the academy. I was a mental health deputy, and that is when I fell in love with mental health, to find out, how do I stay alive? I want to serve, I want to love people, but how do I continue to do that when I can't figure out how to keep myself alive?
Yeah.
I don't know how to get rid of the lies that come in here, the ghosts that you dream. You just can't get rid of the demons that you see and cope with evil. And here we are sitting in a very evil impacted world now. And with these heart skills, it literally is learning how to turn the volume of the, because when we can learn how to listen and function and see one another from here instead of this up here, which is all conditioning and education, we're not connecting to one another. You may have noticed humanity's not really connecting very well anymore.
Yeah.
We help people get to the root of the effects of their trauma.
Yeah,
That's the nutshell.
and workshops, which we'll talk more about as we go. And before we get kind of into that, we got a guest appearance from Gabe. Hey, Gabe, say hi to everybody. We're going to get the mic sorted out. Oh, there we go. Oh, we weren't hooked up. Bless our hearts.
Perfect.
We probably still could hear you just fine, I imagine.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, so if you're just checking
Hi.
in, or if you've been here, oh, that may be why you were hearing it faintly. They could hear you just to
Yes.
give a, but now they'll hear you much better.
Cool.
Yeah. Jerry, what got you into just kind of walking in this with Veda and doing the Belief Center?
Well, Veda and I have been together for 34 years, and that's how we got together. My life, in contrast to her life, I was the last of 6 children, and love in it. It was just a harsh place to be. And so I've had a lot of problems in my life maturing my management of my emotions, to not be reactive. If trauma's driving you, you're not doing good. And I lived a life driven by reaction and impulse. The stuff that we do gives you an opportunity to reflect on how you got to be how you are, whatever that is. And then you have get it in perspective, and things shrink when you can really look at them. Something that's just overwhelming and you can't stand to even think about, if you just take it out and look at it, really hash it over, it's nothing anymore.
Yeah.
I guess that's how I got here.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of truth in really kind of like the philosophical principle of being able to squarely look at the truth, to squarely look at the problem. And we encourage that with, all the conversations we have on this show of be honest, humble ourselves, look at the information. And I imagine we're going to look at a lot of those aspects as we talk a little bit more about your guys. As you guys had mentioned to me before the show, you go into the prison system, and then you have these workshops that you do amongst many other things that I'm sure that you have done and plan to do in the future. But maybe let's tackle a little bit of just kind of like what that faced with powerlessness. All right. And you guys are taking in hope in this message, and maybe we can take a look at some of that, the work you guys are doing, and then maybe use that as a first context to start to explain the heart skills to our listeners.
Great. You want to talk to them and talk about that?
Okay, so the class that we teach is out here in the world is a 2-day class. It's like 9 to 6, 2 days. In there, we go in there and we get them for 3 or 4 hours. So we do a piece. So instead of taking a weekend like we do out here, we take a couple months of going in there every week. Different environment. Those guys are separated from their families. And we've been fortunate to get a group that their husband, and they're trying to find a higher calling or a purpose so that they can help others. So we mentor those guys, teach them our skills, do it with them, and then with some repetition, then they get comfortable. We're trying to release this training, if you will, to empower them to do it for themselves.
Yeah. What's a piece of the hard skills?
We start off with your value and worth, which is an innate thing. Doesn't change based on who you are. Who you are doesn't change by what you do. It doesn't change who you are. And you're the same you when you were born today. And we
What do
firmly
they-
believe that.
They call that the origination point. I mean, there's a lot of terms for it, but that's one of the ways I've always really liked it. It's like that origination point of your identity, of who you are as a human being. That starts from birth,
Yes,
and it's pretty pure stuff.
yes.
Right.
And that's still in here. I like that you call that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, no matter how walled off you get in anger or just whatever the fear is, because anger is just a reaction to fear. It's an immaturity of not being able to look at something. If something's making you mad, you should be able to look at it instead of reacting to it. If you can, it'll save you a lot of grief.
That's right.
It's a good point.
So the value and worth. Then we talk about
Family
your home of origin,
Yep.
family of origin. So in that, it's the question would be, make a sketch that represents your family, whatever that family was, right? If you grew up and stayed home, that's your family. Just whatever you grew up in, and the representatives that are there, and some way to flag you that you can talk about how that shaped you. And then the last question on that one is, what's the thing you like least about yourself in this picture?
Yeah.
That gets some neat answers.
Oh, I'm sure across the whole spectrum, I imagine.
Because you're talking about grown men who've been or grown men that have been incarcerated.
women,
Some of
too.
them but for most of many of them most of their lives. And so to pop that question to them, it's kind of for some of them it's a little bit of a shock because they've never thought of anything like that.
Yeah.
And we also start out walking around the room and just looking in each person's face and telling each person that we love them. Because many, many people live their entire lives without ever hearing those words.
I never heard it.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, and we know that because that's the way my husband grew up.
Right.
And I think it's amazing that God put us together with the very opposite foundations that we came from so that he could build this through us to help other people that have the exact same issues. He never makes a mistake. It's just it's fascinating
you
that
don't
we
too,
get to do this work.
Yeah, and as we met at our
Together.
friend's wedding prior, and then even having a chance to sit down a little bit, talk before this again, and it's like two different temperaments, but two really good people. And I'm sitting here as I'm
Thank
listening to
you.
you. It's like I'm sure. I mean, you live with her, so it's like when she came in, I was like, talk about the most affirming person. I mean, just
Oh,
like,
thank you.
it's nice. It's nice to be around, and also just as I'm hearing you as well, Jerry, just the realities of these situations. There's a perspective of honesty here that I could see probably comes together really well and
Absolutely.
synchronizing with your guys' work. And I could only imagine you get someone who's hungry, who has made a lot of mistakes in their life, and they get to see this dichotomy. It probably is very helpful.
Yes. And if I may also add, not only are we helping the incarcerated, and we're specifically right now working with veterans, incarcerated veterans. We've done multiple classes with our veterans in the largest unit in Texas, Cofield. There's over 4,000 men in one unit.
Oh, wow.
And we've been there, did we figure out the math, since 2018, I think it was? I think it's
17,
2018, 17.
18.
Anyway, it all runs together when you get to be our age. So it's been a long time, and we've watched, we just started another, we just started another class on Thursday out at the Veterans Dorm at Cofield. And our mentees are leading this class for the very first time.
Oh, nice.
Wow. When we crossed the threshold of that classroom, and it was packed, like we couldn't even get around each other, it was so full. Every eye was up, every heart was open. And that is a direct reflection of the effects of this work on those men that we've brought this to in the years prior that reside in this dorm. They have completely transformed the entire spirit in the dorm that they live in. So these new boots that came in, this is what, the fourth class, I think,
In that unit.
they're ready.
Yeah.
The first class we went into, they wouldn't even look at me for weeks.
Sure.
You talk to them, and this is how they do.
They mumble, look at the floor.
Because nobody gives a care about them. They're disposed of.
They're warehoused.
Yeah, well, it
So
reminds me.
it's kind of a real fresh approach to them for somebody to care.
Yeah, no, truly. It reminds me, Jerry, when you were saying, like, no matter how much we've walled ourselves off, we can still come out of that. And that's what this work is all about. I see it every day in my therapy practice. I imagine you guys see it every day when you're doing these workshops and teaching these classes. And I mean, it's just, that's what we're here to share with you guys. That's why we do this week in, week out. And my hope is that someone here is listening to this and says, hey, maybe I need to look into the Belief Center because I've been looking at the ground a lot lately. And that may sound funny, but it's like, hey, look up. There's a beautiful world out here.
There's so much. There really is.
I imagine there's more to the heart skills too.
Yes.
So I want to hear maybe just some of the highlights that you really enjoy. So we heard some from Jerry,
okay.
maybe just one or two from
Yes.
you.
Love to.
That way they can get a sense
Yes.
of what you guys are cooking over there.
Wonderful. Well, let me also add, it's a 3-part series. We work on 3 different areas, connecting up to your spiritual connection, and we do not define what that is. We help the individuals define what that is for them. And then we work on Connect In, which is all about accountability and taking your power back. And then we move into the 3rd part, which is Connect Out. So you heal your spiritual connection first, then you move into self-healing. And then when you get those 2 understood better, then you are more empowered to connect out to other people without giving yourself away. It's amazing how that works, because if you try to heal the other one before the other 2,
Sure.
you're reaching for coping mechanisms, you're scrambling, you're doing the same old things. It has to be spirit first.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah.
That's our foundation, and we all have one.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
works out great. But with the skills, we have a version of Heart Skills that we use. It's the exact same topics, and we use what we call believer music videos. So it's spiritual Christian music videos. But for the heroes classes, Hearts for Heroes classes is what we call them. For our first responders, or everyone who works on the front lines of the most difficult parts in humanity.
Yeah.
And that can include people who work for CASA, for all of those agencies and organizations that they're helping those of us that are hurting the most.
Right.
And for those that do that professionally, they have deep wounds related to their profession.
Certainly.
Yes, so we help the healers heal.
Yeah. I like that.
That's what we do. We help the healers heal. Because I'm a healer, and I had to find healing for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure both of you have, because you're helping healers heal, would agree with this is like, if you want to do this work, because we have therapists who listen to this show too, if you want to do this work, you're going to get confronted with whatever the biggest hurdles are in your life.
Yes.
My therapist always would tell me in the beginning, God has a sense of humor. And boy does
the
he.
truth.
I would get confronted. I'd be working with clients like, I recognize that problem, and then I started to address it.
Yes.
It just made me a better therapist. And
Yes.
that's really, it's like, it's not about what you stand to lose. It's about what you stand to gain by doing this work. It's just crossing that threshold of the fact that it's going to be painful at first. And we can't give you any guarantee on how long it's going to be painful, but we do know if you stick with it with consistency like the 2 of you are talking about tonight, it does get better.
Absolutely.
And I love that you guys are working with the first responders, because I'm sure you see it time and time again. They are the first ones to forget to take care of themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, some lived experiences,
Yes.
I'm sure, with it too. Yeah.
Yes. But we look at not only, it's just, it's really a lot of fun to me. I know it's hard work, but we also have so much fun. Because when it's in the context of other people, it's a totally autonomous experience, as autonomous as you can get when you're sitting next to 2 people.
Sure.
Right? But it is. We're simply setting them up with questions, journal questions. We give them our own personal examples, so we lead from the front. We make ourselves vulnerable, because we're not going to ask them to be vulnerable until we show them how it's done.
Sure.
So we give them that living, breathing example, so that then that encourages them, hey, maybe this isn't so scary.
Yeah.
Look, they just did it. So it just makes it a lot easier to kind of relax and let your guard down, because it needs to be as comfortable as it can possibly be so that you can reach the things that you need to reach.
Yeah.
So we work really hard to bring in the anointing of the Holy Spirit in our meeting spaces, because we believe in the power of Spirit, and the Holy Spirit does amazing things. So we feel like that a little piece of heaven drops down in our little classrooms, wherever we have them, and we go all over the country with them. So we've never seen it work any other way. So the room is prepared. Our team is always prepared in the same way, spiritually, every other way. And we do our work so that other people can learn from watching how we do that.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's really the main.
And we're still growing.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
always.
oh, yeah,
Wait a minute.
hopefully
Let me
so.
check. Are we? Are we?
Yeah.
Oh, yep. We are. We're still growing.
Yeah.
We're still growing.
Well,
We're still growing.
and also too, it's like, and thank God we are, right? Because
Yes.
we're our best tool when we do this work. We're our sharpest tool when we do this work, and that modeling aspect. It's like, yeah, let me lean into this and show you what it's like to be honest and to be vulnerable and to use myself as a model here at times, and especially in group settings.
Oh, yes.
Because now, and there's been little things where when you're describing the groups, it's like, yeah, the setting allows you to set up the boundaries so that those things can be safe, and without that modeled, it gets real dicey really quick. When you're dealing with some, more reactive type emotions, or some of the more difficult topics that we were touching on before the show started, which we'll probably get into here,
Oh,
just the
yes.
stuff that comes up. But without the containment of that, with I'm sure even the mentees that you guys have that you're teaching this system,
Oh, yes.
they come in and they model, I imagine, what it looks like.
They do.
How many are on your team that you guys have brought in, taught your guys' workshops, and go out and teach it as well?
Well, we have. How many do we have?
They come and go, but
Because we're all volunteer,
Oh, okay.
we're
all
about,
across the country.
what are we, about 10 years?
Yeah, we're just over 10 years. Yeah. So I would say probably about a dozen.
I got a database of like 300 or 400 people.
But as
Sure.
far as our team, the team, it's
you
probably
prob-
a solid dozen.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because it's primarily when we travel, it's usually Jerry and I. But we do have team members that can, depending upon, of course, where we are. So that's why our numbers are usually kind of small whenever, and gosh, and they do such a great job. Because it's amazing to be fully staffed, 10 years old. We give everything away. Nothing that we offer, none of our programs or services, nobody has to pay a penny for what we do. And we take care of the hotel room if they come in from out of town. If they need a place to stay, we take care of that. I think we've even bought a battery for somebody, to get up from the coast, that was trying to come up from the coast. Because the Father says he doesn't want anybody to need a penny in their pocket to seek freedom and to find his truth. And so we're just here to bring his truth and the freedom that's available to all of us.
I love that.
So.
Yeah. And you guys probably saw Veda looking in the back there. It's because we have mutual friends in the back and that have
can't
also
help myself.
benefited from this. Yeah. But I love that, right? So,
family.
someone wants to get involved in the workshops and wants to heal through something. I mean, I think the Belief Center sounds like a wonderful place to turn for hope.
It's incredible.
And you also won't have the excuse that you can't afford it. That
Exactly.
for me as a therapist, that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I caught a lot of flack from that when we first started, because as a business level and on a logical scale, that made zero sense.
It's spiritual, right?
Yes.
Like you guys are touching on, it's like if you want to keep it, you got to give it away.
Yes, that's
gonna
it.
share
Well,
That's it.
Depending on the environment, like we've done classes at rehabs, and typically they can't tithe to us.
Yeah.
We are a nonprofit. In the prison, same thing. We don't get anything for going there. We just try to ask people to tithe into us as we go through our classes. We ask them to pay it forward,
Yeah.
and that's really
That's
It's
it.
that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if the listeners wanted to donate to the vision that you guys have,
Wonderful.
and when we put it on social media and continue to kind of just promote this alongside our stuff, where could they find that? And we'll make sure it's linked in all the.
Oh, great.
The website is www.thebeliefcenter.com.
Org. Sorry.
I'm sorry, .org. And there's a donate button there.
Yeah, if you scroll down on the first page of the website, you can donate. So that would work. And thank you for remembering that.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get that donate button.
That's
So,
the worst thing we do is we're bad about asking.
oh well, we're great at it here. If you want to
Thank
donate,
you.
we would encourage you to donate. We'll make sure that those donation links, maybe we'll put it in the Instagram stories as well with the link, because that
Thank you.
social media is real touchy where you put some of these links. But
Oh, yeah.
we'll make sure that we
appreciate
find the
that.
proper place on Facebook. If you follow us there, if you follow us on Instagram or on YouTube, you'll see the donation link when this goes from the live to just like our stock videos on YouTube. They'll see the link there.
Great.
And you know, if they're listening on Fishbowl, the radio that we have, they'll hear the website, and then they can find the YouTube as well, which is typically what happens.
Excellent, thank you. And I just want to mention, we are a public funded organization. We don't take any city, state, county, federal, no monies like that from any of those folks. No,
Yeah.
we don't.
Well, yeah. What is that? It's like in the 12-step rooms. It's like keep our entities separate.
Yes,
You know? Yeah.
thank you. Yes, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's how I, you know, and just kind of, I've heard the praises sung of your guys' organization before we even had a chance to meet at the wedding. And
Oh, thank you.
but it's nice because when you come across organizations like this, is the one thing in my career I've always trusted is, you know, you can trust the mission, you can trust the vision, you can trust that they're out there not trying to push agendas, but share hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I support that message
Thank you
completely.
so very much, so very much. And I also want to add on, as far as attendees of the class, we help, our classes are appropriate from mature 13-year-olds all the way up. We've had from 13 to, I think, 80, 82 or 83.
Yeah, somewhere there.
So our classes are for everybody.
Awesome.
We have ministers, we have doctors,
Yeah.
people
Counselors.
from people from all walks of life. So
I would
it's
hope
just
there'd be
magical.
counselors in those rooms. Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yes.
we're jacked up.
They carry ghosts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know,
Yes.
it's like both of you are saying, in any emotionally supportive type role in your careers or first responders, these kind of things, it's like you're going to be confronted by this work. And I was very thankful when my therapist came into the picture and started to help me see the necessity of me doing my work on the back end. You know, I just kept running into the same walls.
Yes.
Good guy, cares, big heart, charismatic. I enjoy the interactions. Why am I reactive in these ways? You know, why do I take these certain things personally? If it wasn't for the spiritual work, I would have
Yes.
kept hitting those walls. You know?
And you just can't beat the freedom from it, can you?
No, you know, it's
so worth it. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. You know, I don't often share a whole lot, right? You know, on my like personal stuff because I'm always here to get.
Right,
But
yes.
there was a certain personal freedom around some of the spiritual recoveries in my life that I resonate as you guys are sharing your mission and vision. That without it, I would have just continued to do the same thing over and over again. Insanity. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
As a reference, some of the military guys, they go through some programs that are called MRT. I don't know what that acronym means,
I'm not sure either.
but I've been told by them as they come through our stuff that some of what we have is like a cleaner, simpler version of some of those. Like we don't have all the, I don't know, structure around it.
Yeah.
It's more free flowing. They say they like that better. It's gets them out of their head, because when you're trying to do it the other way, you're in your head way too much, and you're not able to really,
Yeah.
feel your heart when you're there.
Well, it makes sense too. Any military or veteran I've ever worked with talks a lot about in their training, and it's like I always think about it too from the standpoint of like they've got to be a unit.
Yes.
You know, and that's what we're hardwired to do in life. You know,
Yeah.
and I see clients just year after year of that I walk with in my practice, who it's amazing how quickly have forgotten that message. How simple it is that at our base we're wired for a few things, and chief among them, after your basic needs are met, are your emotional connections and relationships. I was reminded by a client today. He listens to the show, so if you're listening, I love you, brother. But he reminded me today. It's like if you're seeking the riches and you're seeking the fame and like some of these like big aspects that people think is success in our culture, isn't it any wonder that they get pretty lost in those realms? But he was kind of talking about the trifecta of relationships, purpose, and service, which aligns with what you guys were just touching on in your guys' mission. These things are eternal and important. Or else problems start to arise. And maybe we can take a shift. So maybe it's a good time to shift into some of the more difficult things that you guys see day in, day out with the work that you're doing, that you're addressing with the Belief Center. We can go any direction you want.
Okay, great. Well, people are hopeless. And it's not just first responders, and it's not just this group or that group. We just live in a season on the planet of hopelessness. And hopelessness will lead many, many people down a road of not wanting to be here anymore and choosing to not be here anymore. I personally have been down that road. Didn't think it was possible when you grew up with Ward and June Cleaver. Oh, for all you young kids, look that up. Google that. Ward, what was the show called?
Leave
It to
Beaver.
Beaver. Is it in black and white?
Oh,
Yes,
it
I
is.
am that old. And there I went right off of that. It's late in the day, isn't it?
You were-
Oh, yes, hopelessness. Being ill prepared out in the real world, I found myself trusting people just right off the bat because that's the only thing that I knew. So I became prey when I got out there. Prey. And at one point with my second husband, because Jerry is number 4, I believed in the unconditional love I grew up in. So that is what I kept looking for and could not find. And people say things to you and they lie, it turns out. Well, I didn't know spouses did that to one another.
Right.
I had 3 generational layers of people who didn't act that way, so I had no idea that existed. So I got into these relationships with that expectation, belief, all of that sort of thing. And then I found myself being tortured. I even helped get the state where we could put into law that men can no longer rape their wives. That's the precipice I was on at the time, is before that law got on the books. I was part of getting that law on the books because that's what was happening to me. And that sent me into an insane spiral because I had no idea what to do with any of it. And I was so embedded in shame because my decisions took me to those places. Right. I had no clue what to do with any of it. How could I tell my family? How could I tell my family? I didn't tell my family. I couldn't tell my family. So I went through 13, 14 years with 3 other husbands that I didn't want to live at all. The second one, which happened to, as a product of rape, I became pregnant. And I had no intention of having children personally. That was just a personal decision that I had made. But through trickery and him robbing me of my birth control pills and then performing that act, I ended up pregnant. Well, she ended up being the reason why I wanted to live instead of die. So as she grew in my womb, the abuse did not slow down. In fact, it increased because in a lot of abusive situations, as you know, that's what happens when the female is pregnant. And so by the time I was 8 months pregnant, he abused me to the point where I was convinced that she was now dead. So I waited and waited and waited to feel her because at 8 months they're really popping in there. Nothing. So I told myself when I went to bed that night, if she's not kicking by morning, I'm not staying. So I woke up the next morning and she wasn't kicking. So I took it upon myself to make a decision that I'm going to take care of my own hopelessness. So I went in and got a gun and made sure that it was loaded and went into the bathroom and wiggled myself between the toilet and the tub and put the gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger. Obviously it didn't go off. But I literally saw the hand of God come down at right around the cylinder of that weapon. And of course, I completely fell apart. Because when you are at such a place in your life of hopelessness, and you call out to the Father, and He tangibly reaches to you, what are you supposed to do with that? Believe it, that it's real, and that I have a purpose, and that I have a reason to be here. Because we all do, no matter how hopeless we feel. We have a reason to be here, and it's really important for us to hold on to hope and reach for one another until we can find our feet back underneath us again.
Yeah. It's a very real testimony. I appreciate you
Thank
just
you.
sharing that with us.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one. There are many of us hiding in the dark
Sure.
in our homes.
Yeah.
And of course, me as a former first responder, I want to pitch my cape back, and drive around all the neighborhoods
Yeah.
and just go check on everybody. But I can't do that. So instead, I have the privilege and honor to be healed and to be able to hold the light for others who are still searching.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the beauty, I think,
Turns
of
out I'm
service.
worth it.
Yeah, it
And
turns out.
so is everybody else. There are no exceptions.
Right.
Yes, we are all priceless.
Yeah.
It's time we can start believing it.
Sure. And the axiom there of service, right, is like when we're doing our healing, I don't have to go and knock on the doors anymore. But when someone does come and knock on mine,
Yep.
right, because, well, it's been deemed a place where we've got the welcome sign up and the lights are on. If you knock on this door, we can talk about it. And,
Yeah.
it's just, it's nice that there are places and people in the world that are willing to do that and also share their testimonies and, the courage it takes to come out here and share as you guys have on some of these more difficult topics. It's, this is why we do this work. This is what waits for all of us, if we're willing to look at the hard things. We can get better, we can feel better, we can be of service, which ultimately I think us sitting in this room, right, and just those who are supporting us in this room too, I know would agree, is like that's pretty close to our purpose for being here is being of service to each other and connecting in these ways.
It is, yes.
I used to think it wasn't to be an engineer.
Right. Yeah.
IIT graduate right here, Chicago IIT graduate right here.
I saw that in your bio too, but I appreciated, just the dichotomies of your guys' backgrounds as they come together. But I noticed that in your bio that it's like very technical, very logical, but then, right, it doesn't matter what directions we come from, right? It's like we all come to these central points in healing that are unavoidable. They're the threads that follow all of us as human beings.
Yes.
There's just a lot of nuances in the ways that we've experienced the world, a lot of different types of hurts, a lot of different situations, but the threads are just so identifiable.
Yes. Yes.
And you guys have touched on a lot of them. Shame is a huge one
Oh,
that you were
boy.
just mentioning. And
Yes.
I can only imagine that as we just share this episode live tonight for those who are listening, but as we share the bits and pieces of it over the coming months, that there's going to be a lot of people who identify with what was just shared. And I thank you for sharing it because we have a lot of people who watch this, this show, and it's just important to
Yes.
break down the conversation of shame. If these things are happening in your home, it's not normal,
No.
right? It's also not okay.
Never.
And there are plenty of men and women who understand it.
Absolutely.
And can help support you and get you out of it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would like to mention, if you look up the statistics, but I'm not the greatest fan of statistics, but
Sure.
they're a measure of sorts, and that is the rate of people who choose to leave this world by their own hand, and how young they are now. How young they are now. 9.
Yeah.
9.
Well, it's unfortunate too, because we've seen a real increase in the last. I'll give this, like, again, statistic. It's like up until the year 2020, the rates of substance use were pretty static, right? Around like
they
20
were.
million
Yeah.
individuals 12 and older were dabbling in some kind of illicit substance use, right? Or some kind of excessive use. That number has doubled since 2020. So you've got a pandemic, you've got some things that are happening in different laxed areas of the world where this becomes more of a prevalent issue. But one of the side effects that you've seen of that is not just increased rates of substance use, but increased rates of suicidal ideations
absolutely.
and a decrease in the age that these things are affecting. It used to be the benchmark was 12. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 to 10 years if that benchmark is dropped down to 9, which is talk about insanity. We've had a few school psychologists and they're on the show, and their message, one of them's my little sister, right? So when she talks, my ears perk up.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
She's a brilliant young woman.
Runs in the family.
Yeah, God bless. But she and the other school psychologists have highlighted, like, we've got to start protecting our kids.
Yes.
And that starts with work like this. We've got to take care of ourselves as adults if we're ever going to protect these younger generations.
Yes.
And there's been some boats that have been passing in the night, the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that you guys are out here nationwide doing this work, addressing shame and some of these deeper roots.
And we're looking forward to taking it into the public schools. These need to be for all people.
Right.
I mean, they need to be part of school curriculum. They need to be part of college curriculum. I mean, they need to be part. Our children, if we had these skills when we were children, wow.
Yeah.
Knowing how to triage thoughts as they come in, knowing how to manage pain, and not being hopeless just because we experience an ouchie. I mean, it's just, it's, oh, man.
Yeah,
I just can't even imagine.
I could see little kids wearing the polos, Hearts for Heroes, like they used to wear the Dare polos. You remember those? I
Yes,
still have one
yes.
of those.
Do you really?
The Dare, yeah. God bless.
I remember those.
Yeah. So, what's on the horizon for you guys as far as these initiatives? Have you already started submitting just kind of requests to get into the schools, and what does that kind of look like? And maybe we'll come here, maybe hear from you a little bit, and then. Or if you have nothing to say on it, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Well, she's been doing most of it, but we're getting meetings with the Texas Youth Commission, or we're working on that.
It's our it's our county juvenile detention
Oh, okay.
system.
Gotcha.
Yes.
What else do we got going on new?
Well, that we're going across the country with our classes this year. So right now, currently, we have dates for 2 out of 4, but one of the next one coming up is Pasadena.
Oh,
And that's
yes.
going to be Texas. Oh, thank
Oh,
you. That's right.
Pasadena,
Thank
Texas.
you. Yes,
Yeah,
Pasadena, Texas.
I'm
And
a Cali boy. I was born and raised in California.
oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Well, we're glad you're in Texas.
I'm glad to be here. Yeah, yeah, and especially right.
Oh, right
it's
now,
like,
thank goodness.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like I say that, like I'm glad to be here right now, but my heart goes out. I know a lot of people
course.
have been
Oh, my
affected
word.
in that area with the fires.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
So, but there's tons of people out there donating time and resources, and they've got a lot of support out there, and that's reassuring to see.
But yeah, so we have Pasadena, February 15th and 16th. We'll have one in Yukon, Oklahoma. We'll have one in Roswell, New Mexico, and we will have
The aliens, huh?
We will have a yes. We're going after them, Alan.
Yeah.
We're going
Hey,
after
if you
them. I'm going
catch
to bring
one.
them to you.
Yeah, if you catch one, bring it. We'll have them on the show.
Oh, I'm going to. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And then we have a special Hearts for Heroes class that's going to pop in Danville, Illinois, for our military heroes. So, yeah.
And then what's the location when you guys do the workshops around here in the
We
Dallas
go
area?
everywhere.
Okay.
We invite people to host the class because we usually provide lunches both days, snacks, water's got to keep people hydrated and sustained when they're doing heart work because it's hard work.
Yeah.
So we make sure that they have everything that they need for both of those days to take the best care of themselves. And so there's just all kinds of little things like that. But so when someone hosts, for example, I've going to be working with the mayor of one of the towns that we're going to, so that because we want to invite the entire community, because as a free mental health resource, the community needs to have a safe place to go.
Well, it's the
And-
lifeblood too for an organization like your
Totally,
guys's. Yeah.
totally. So we're always looking for someone to host, and that requires a venue. It requires some catering or someone to cook, for the lunches or whatever.
And some
So-
attendees.
Yes, and people that want to
That'd be
people that
important.
want to attend.
Yeah.
That's very beneficial. Yeah,
Yeah.
we like it when other people come.
Yeah.
But no, our average is usually about 24 in a class.
Okay.
About 24 in a class. Now, when we did the 3 recovery centers in Oklahoma, we had a 60 or 70.
70, yeah.
I think maybe 70. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Which works just fine.
Oh yeah.
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 well, yeah. When you get into workshops, you can, depending on the venue, you can really support
Oh, yeah.
numbers growing. Yeah.
Yes.
We just keep our small groups the same size, and that's really what dictates it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what we've got so far, and I'm also currently meeting with some folks at our local emergency departments at our hospitals, because those frontline folks have been looking for something to help their frontline workers.
Sure.
So I'm meeting with the emergency department director to see how we can come in and help those folks.
Yeah.
So-
And is the hub, like, you guys are based out of
Canton, Texas.
Canton? That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it was somewhere around here, but yeah.
If you know First Monday Trade Days, the largest trade days in the world.
The largest flea market.
The largest flea market.
Oh,
It's in
interesting.
Canton, Texas. We go from 4,800 people to
250,000.
about 150,000 on a weekend.
Oh, wow.
And it happens the first weekend of every month.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
There, the one thing, my dad was born and raised here in Texas, but like moving,
Really?
moving
Cool.
out here after being born and raised in
Uh-oh.
California, Texas got the biggest everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's a cool
What
state.
a
I love
culture
it.
shock for you.